Welcome to Discovering. Right in between the Upper and Lower Peninsula is one of my favorite places. We're on Mackinac Island for the annual Lilac Festival.
The festival is just a great way in a concentrated period of time to let people know of all the different things that we have to offer on Mackinac Island.
Stick around, it's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Mackinac Island is truly one of the state's most unique destinations. Streets without cars, the best fudge you'll find anywhere. Historic landmarks, and the grandest of all hotels. All amidst one of the world's greatest lakes. It also features the perfect growing conditions for lilacs. Each year you'll find a variety of events taking place on the island. In June, it's the Lilac Festival.
Well, yeah, it's a great kickoff to the season, and you know, the island is known for lilacs, and they've been around for an awfully long time. They say that we have over 200 varieties on the island. Possibly came during the Civil War with people that were serving up at the Fort Mackinac, maybe from Vermont, and our lilac experts, Jeff and Jan Young, are from Vermont, so it works out really well. And they're just beautiful. They're all over the place. It's nice people can come here, not from the rest of the Upper Peninsula, but and get a second spring, because the lilacs downstate and throughout the rest of the country, probably most of them anyway, have already come and gone, and now they get to see them again. And they get to see so many different kinds. And they'll bloom for a good 2.5 to 3 weeks. So it's always good to be able to do that. And it's just good family fun. There's a lot of stuff to do during the week, and there are shops get involved and have different themes and bring in different artists for their shops, or different manufacturers for the different types of products that they have in their stores. And we have sip and sales at night, so we have a lot of fun on the water during the festival, as we do during the rest of the season. So the festival is just a great way in a concentrated period of time to let people know of all the different things that we have to offer for tourists on Mackinac Island. We are so fortunate for the 15th year to have Jeff and Jan Young here from Vermont. Jeff Young is one of the foremost experts on lilacs, and he provides a tour that people will line up, especially on the weekends, in very large crowds. So big we're going to have to get him on a microphone and a portable speaker next year. But take a look at what Jeff has to offer and get a piece of it, and then come to Mackinac Island next year and see it in person.
This is the first introduced French lilac late 1800s.
The beauty of Mackinac, the lilacs here, is that they're built into every aspect of the island. Every business, every home, they're here. Every park is covered with lilacs. And this is unique because usually you're going to see collections of lilacs in botanical gardens and parks, and they're all clustered together. But here they're built into every aspect of life here on the island, and that's what makes it truly beautiful. Everywhere you go, uniqueness, either the way they're pruned or the species that they happen to pick, and there are 2,000 different kinds of lilacs, and you're going to see hundreds of different kinds here on the island. So it's really a unique place that you're not going to see them worked into the fabric of the actual community. So that's the beauty of it. And there are, like I said, no matter where you go, whether you come to the park's been completely redone. We've gotten rid of a lot of the old stems that didn't make it, and it's been rejuvenated. We've worked on just about every place here on the island over the 13 years that I've been coming here. The original lilacs probably came here with a New Hampshire farmer that came in the early 1800s. The lilac is the state flower of New Hampshire, and they were brought there by Wentworth, and so they were well established in New Hampshire in the 1700s. So it's likely he brought it with him as a kind of a sign of good luck thing. In New England, it was very common. If you built a new place, you would plant a lilac, and so that's probably how they got here. The old stem lilacs that exist on that end of the island were where the farm was, so I think it's pretty likely that that's where they came from. Thoreau came through here in 1850 and noted in his diary the lilacs. That's their first mention we have of lilacs on the island, but they were well established then, so that's probably where they came from. We really don't know for sure, but that's the best guess. The next group of lilacs would have come with the wealthy when they came here to the islands in the late 1800s, built the bluff homes. They brought a lot of interesting plant material from their gardens in Chicago. Most of them were in the Chicago area, very wealthy. So they brought their gardens with them and planted wonderful plant material all over. And the French lilacs were a big part of the Victorian garden. And so I'm sure, and we know there are several still here. A lot of those French lilacs made up the second iteration of lilacs coming to the island. The real push, though, almost all the lilacs we see here, except for the old stems, came from the 1949-1950 push to create a lilac festival. And so they planted 180 lilacs in Marquette Park, and then they planted everything, every house. And it was a competition among the locals to put them in their businesses and their homes, and they put them everywhere. And they got rare lilacs. They invited lilac experts to plant and to work on them. And so that's why you see such rare lilacs. We have here is Sylvia, for instance. This is a plant that's never been in production. It's a late blooming pink lilac that has variegated leaf. Not seen it privately held. It was a gift to the island. There's a lot of them here on the island that are like that are just, you're not going to see them anywhere else. So that's what's happened, and that continues today. I mean, new lilacs are being planted here on the island all the time, and they've built it right into the fabric of the island. It's certainly been a joy. It's kind of a challenge to keep them up because there are so many of them, and that's one of the things I hope I can do in my talk, is to try to show people how to properly prune them. They're really not that hard to prune if you keep them up every year and keep them to height so they don't get too big and too rangy and die off. You want to keep them well tended because whenever you bring plants of a genus together, you also attract the diseases of that genus. So you really don't want them to get some kind of disease going on the island where you have all these lilacs. And so far we've been pretty blessed. There hasn't been a lot of disease on the island. I think a lot of that we prevented by taking out a lot of the old stems in the park over the last few years. I spent quite a bit of time here a few years ago. For about 3 years I was here regularly, and we worked getting the park cleaned up. We put in about 60 new lilacs and did a lot of new work down there, and it looks really good right now. The park has done a great job of maintaining it. They had very poor maintenance practice before, but that's true of a lot of parks. They don't have a lot of resources, they don't have a lot of money, so they do the best they can, and sometimes during the economic downturn, the Parks Department got hit really hard with manpower and money, so it was kind of just hang on by your fingernails for a while, but now things have eased and things are better, and so they're doing a lot better is taking care of maintaining things. So that's that part of it. This year the island got hit with beavers, and they've been taking down lilacs and Norway maples alike along the shoreline, so that's getting to be a real problem. I'm hoping they can fix that fairly soon. They took out, right across the street, they took out 4 beautiful sensation lilacs, the one with the purple and the white edge that were there. They were pretty good size too, and they took them down. So you never know. They've had rabbit infestations, voles and moles, and now beavers. I mean, nature is going to take its course. There are 2,000 kinds of lilacs, 23 species. The common lilac that we think of is the purple. The purple and the white occur in nature, and so from those 2 plants, there have been developed about 800 cultivars of the common lilac, and that's the majority of plants that are here are the common lilacs. Then you have the earlies, the hyacinthifloras that bloom first, and those are usually past by the time I get here, but it's an early flush of lilac. Then the commons, then the late lilacs, the Canadians, most of them are the Prestons. And then we have the very late lilacs, which are the lilac trees, which here on the island don't bloom until the end of July. So you have quite a broad. The earlies will come out mid-May, and you'll have lilac bloom right through the end of July here on the island. So there are hundreds of different types of lilacs here on the islands, just about the entire breadth of the lilac world.
So this was a sucker from one of the trees that we had to cut out of there because, as you can see, they're very, very close together. As you can see, it made it just fine and it's flowering. I talked to you about sweet suckers and good suckers. So the sweet suckers, here's a sweet sucker right here. Sweet suckers just pop up wherever. Normally they do that if there's not a lot of leaf mass on there, and you don't want them. They're very weak because they don't come from a regular node. They just come up wherever they want, and eventually they will help break that branch because they'll grow every bit as big as a regular branch. So normally we just pluck them off with your thumb. If you have a new growth, a new plant that doesn't have a lot of leaves on it, we sometimes leave them because photosynthesis still happens. Now, some people love to bring flowers in the house. How many people get them to last more than 2 or 3 days in the house? Take a bucket of room temperature water out to your lilac. You want to ensure the continued health of this plant. So take it back to where the branch bifurcates and cut it there immediately, put it in that bucket of water. When you get it inside, if your vase is only that big, fill your vase up with room temperature water, then cut it to the size that you want for your vase and stick it right in there, and you'll have them last 2 or 3 weeks. Pruning, you guys. You want to foster about 5 good canes. You want there to be a lot of air and light that can circulate in there. Ultimately, the light goes all the way to the ground. People say, well, my lilacs, they only have leaves on the end of the branches. Well, that's why, because it's not getting any light inside. So the rule of thumb is, if you can put your hand in and draw it out without hitting a branch, you've got a good amount of space for the plant to thrive. In the springtime, that's the best time to prune. You haven't got leaves on there, so you can really look at the structure of your plant. You want to look for any branches that conflict, any crossover, any rubbing, and cut those branches back to where they naturally bifurcate. Suckers. These are true suckers. If this was my property, I would take all the grass out from about to the drip line of the lilacs. That allows the suckers to come up when they need to come up and weed whacker to stay away from them. I'd foster the suckers on this side, so eventually I'm going to have a healthy plant moved far enough away from the other ones to thrive. You can see the new growth of this plant. It's very uniform, it's not scaly, it's young. So that's the kind of growth that we want to promote for the plant. And if you look in here, you will see this cane. I can virtually peel it away with my hand. Now, on the mainland, that's good eats for bugs because they don't have to work very hard to get it. You want to keep the plant growth down to probably 12 feet because you don't want to hang out of your second story window to prune. After the suckers get to about 3 or 4 feet and you know they've wintered over and they're nice and healthy, then you can cut the oldest, craggiest cane out of your plant to the ground. And I'll show you what this does. This is one of the oldest and craggiest canes, and it is also the tallest. So if I cut this all the way out of the ground, I'm lowering my plant by about 3 feet. And I do that successively as soon as it's time, every year or two. And I'm going to bring the total height of my plant down to about 12 feet so I can cut the flowers, so I can smell the flowers, and so I can maintain the health of the tree more easily. Make sure you don't plant this too near the house, even if it's on a shady side, because it's going to get the radiant heat and your plant will die on one side. You want to make sure you've got suckers coming up, because you don't want to take down a lot of the mass if you don't have any new growth. You can prune it and give it light and start making structure. But you don't want to just hack it to the ground if there's no new growth to replace it. It's important to deadhead your lilacs after the flowers pass, within about 10 days. Now, deadheading means that you're going to go to the plant, find where the green ends and the brown begins, and clip all of the green and none of the brown, because lilacs will rotate its bloom 90 degrees every year. So this year, the bloom is in this direction. Next year, if I deadhead, it'll come up here. If I don't deadhead, it'll put out leaf, but it won't put flower until the following year. So just take all of the green, none of the brown, within about 10 days after the blooms are past.
You know, during the summertime, we import a couple of tons of sugar over here a week just to take care of all the fudge making that we have to do, and 80% of that sugar comes from the state of Michigan. So it's nice that we can support the nice sugar industry that we have here in the state. And the Mackinac Island fudge is just famous, and in fact it's, flattery, they say, imitation is the biggest form of flattery, and people try to imitate it throughout the country and the world, but there's only one really good place to get Mackinac Island fudge based on the humidity and being surrounded by these Great Lakes waters, and that's on Mackinac Island, and enjoy watching it being made and then enjoy it even more by tasting it. You know, we're so fortunate to have Mackinac Island where it's located, right in between the two peninsulas. It's Mackinac Island, but it really is Michigan's island. And since the turn of the last century, or at least since the late 1800s, it's been an incredible destination for tourism. And the things we're known for are our fudge, our horses, our history. Grand Hotel is a big iconic spot, Fort Mackinac. the narrated carriage tours. You know, those are the staples that bring people back and many a time. It's nice too when, you know, one of the biggest things that we get to see, especially this time of the early time of the year, are the students that come from all over the state and from other states. And so they get to, you know, possibly see the island for the first time while they're still a student with all their buddies, and come here in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. And then when they come back, they get to see what is the island now? Has it changed at all? And for the most part, the island really hasn't changed. You know, it's like the old saying about baseball, everything's changed, but nothing really has changed. You know, we put a coat of fresh paint on everything, and we're up to date technologically and things like that. But the island is still the same. It's still a place where you can come and relax and kind of go back in time and not only enjoy the downtown area of Mackinac Island, but you know, you can go deep into the woods if you'd like to, and with a fat tire biking, or you can go on the water with a kayak trip, or go on one of the many sunset sip and sails and the different other voyages that we have throughout the day, the sailboats, and it's nice to see that more people are taking advantage of the water that surrounds us. And you know, what a great spot. We're so close to the Mackinac Bridge, and it's so nice to be the border of the Upper Peninsula on the south side and to represent that way. But you know, people have been coming for years, and then they come for the same reasons. Obviously a big a wedding destination, probably one of the most popular in the state of Michigan, and it's a great place to have a family reunion. People tend to, once they've done something significant with their family and they've kind of marked that event, they'll come back year after year to celebrate and to remember.
From quiet, tucked away backwoods retreats to well-known landmarks, the UP can boast some of the most unique and special places found anywhere. And it's all right here in our own backyard. Mackinac Island is certainly no exception. Whether you're coming to smell the lilacs, taste the fudge, or simply experience a special place that time has left alone, it would be hard to leave disappointed. For us, it was time to leave behind the peacefulness of the island, the sound of hooves clogging down the carless streets, the smell of lilacs that saturate every Great Lakes breeze that floats across the island. As I sit on the upper deck eating the last few bites of my half-pound block of Mackinac Island fudge, watching the island fade away behind me, I know I'll be back. It's easy to get to and hard to leave. Such a short journey to such a faraway place.